The Incredibles 2 is a sequel coming 14 years after the original, which is honestly one of my favorite Pixar films. And, as a sequel coming that long after the original, it is a really entertaining and fun movie, but at the same time, I found that kind of a letdown because it didn't really do anything new or different or special with it.
It's time to make some wrong things right. Help me bring supers back into the sunlight. We need to change people's perceptions about superheroes, and Elastigirl is our best play.
Better than me?
So as I said, I was a huge fan of the original, and before the new one came out, I rewatched it again, and it still really holds up. I mean, the only thing that you can tell from its age is that the animation is not great in some scenes. Like, you can kind of see that, like, it's not quite at the level of, like, the Toy Story humans, but, like, you see they're still figuring out how to do all the, the 3D animation, but the actual story is just such a perfect story. And it really is great because when it came out, it was, the age of the superhero movies was still pretty young. I mean, this is like with Iron Man and the Hulk and those first couple movies, Spider-Man, they were coming out. And now, we have so many superhero movies that watching the original is kind of really nice to see. They kind of play with a lot of the tropes of the genre and they do something different with it. I always found it's kind of like The Watchmen, but for kids. And even when I say it's for kids, it's kind of fun rewatching it. There's a lot of violence in the first one, but it's a really good story, There's so much great things about it where, the villain is perfect, especially now with how the fandoms for so many things can be so toxic. And, I love how, each character, if you look at kind of there are a lot of metaphors in the story, but kind of each character in the family kind of has a role that they play. Their superpowers kind of fit their role. The dad is Mr. Incredible that gets so strong that if he wanted to, he could maybe hold the earth up on his back. But, he is kind of down. He's facing, middle age. He's kind of having, the moments where he's not, he's working a horrible job and kind of hates himself and has let himself go. And then you have the mom, which is Elastigirl. So she's of course really flexible and have to do everything at once and taking care of the entire family. And you have, the daughter, which is really shy, and so she can turn invisible. And you have, the son, which is kind of hyperactive, the ADHD, so he is, super fast. And then you have the baby, which is kind of has unlimited potential, and that shows by having multiple different powers. And it's kind of annoying that in this movie, they come out and say it about the baby at one point. And it's kind of nice in the original one that's kind of an unspoken thing. But now it's a spoken thing. And at the same time, though, the baby has probably the best moments of the movie. Although, there's this one scene where the baby's fighting this raccoon. And it's really funny and really good, really cool, great animation. But at the same time, it felt like it was from a different movie. It felt like it was a short inside of the Incredibles movie. Because it's just it begins, it's almost you could take it out of the movie and sell it as a short. Because it begins the dad falls asleep holding the baby and he's watching the TV and there's a robber and then he sees a raccoon outside and they look alike, so he wants to try to stop the robbery from the raccoon, and there's this really long drawn out fight, and it's awesome, but it doesn't really fit reality. Because why would the raccoon keep wanting to fight this baby that has magic powers? And it's just kind of goofy. What are you gonna do? So this movie starts literally right after the first movie, and that is an interesting choice. Not even a day later. They start right after. And, I mean, they do some cool things with it, but it feels like, something like that would be okay if you did it 3 years after the first movie. But after 14 years, I feel like there has to be some sort of, difference. There has to be some time gone by. Because when there isn't any time, it almost it lessens the story of the first movie, is because you go right into the second movie. I mean, you never even do that with the Avengers movie, you know, all the different Marvel movies. There's time in between them to let them recover from what just happened. And it's weird that they start right into this, but they don't really talk about, you know, the villain they just fought. And the actual storyline is kind of similar, because like except now they have the mom is the one that is taken in by a rich person to do hero work, and you know there's obviously, of course, that again the rich person, there's something going on with them, and it's so obvious, and it's kind of like the same exact sort of story as the first one, except you know the villain's a little different, and it was kind of a letdown that they didn't do anything more original with it. And I love, you know, in the first movie that, you know, each character kind of had a development. They had a story, they had an arc. In this movie, none of the characters have an arc. None of the characters have anything to really do. A lot of them don't have anything to do. Especially Dash. Like, Dash had a lot to do in the first movie. In this one, he really doesn't do anything. I mean, honestly, like, he's just there. He runs a couple times. But, like, for the actual big moments, he doesn't have anything to do. I mean, you have Violet has a little bit more stuff to do, and you kind of have her character, too, about, like, the story about in the life, so that she's, like, wants to date this kid, again, from the end of the first movie, but because they saw her without the mask, then, like, the guy in charge kind of wiped his mind, so, like, he forgets her, and there's drama from that. But it's like, I mean, and you see the big story that he's saying that, okay, so now the idea is that these rich people want to, you know, put a camera on the superhero and have them do good things, and then, like, they can try to bring back the heroes, you know, to make them legal again. And this is, you know, Holly Hunter as Elastigirl is the one that's doing it. So, like, so, you know, Craig T. Nelson as Mr. Incredible, he has to kind of take care of the house. Like, he has to raise the kids alone while she's working. And, you know, that sort of storyline is a classic story, but one that's been told before. Like, if you take out the superhero stuff, it's just a dad that doesn't know what he's doing, like, having to, you know, take over for being, you know, helping all the kids, being, you know, taking that role that is more commonly held by a woman, and, you know, he having to deal with it. And, you know, I can see it working, but at the same time, he never really learns anything. Like, see him, like, you know, I think, you know, they were trying to do something like that. You know, he was a hero, you know, outside, but now he has to become a hero in the family. And they don't really do that. At a certain point, it just goes into another, you know, superhero movie. Like, it loses that arc. Because eventually, like, at a certain point, he kind of gives the baby to the costume designer woman, and, like, he to try to do something to help the powers and, like, to control them. But, like, at a certain point, I mean, their moments are funny with that, but it's like, he just kind of left the baby with her. That's not really him learning a lesson at all. And then later, like, when hero stuff starts to happen, he gives the baby to the kids again, and the kids are supposed to watch him. And it's like, he didn't learn anything. There's no arc for that. And there's really no arc for Elastigirl. Like, she becomes a hero, but she was a hero beforehand. Like, I don't see what is her arc. Like, no one has an arc. At the same time, though, it's weird to critique it because I had a lot of fun with this movie. I definitely had problems with it, you know, afterwards, but when I was in it, it is enjoyable. I mean, it is a fun movie. It's a, you know, fun, you know, summer movie, like a cartoon that can be for all ages. But at the same time, I wish they would have done more with it. And I mean, like, there's a villain that is like the screen slaver, and like the stuff that happens with that, and again, the stuff that happens with that is so obvious. It's like the second they introduce them, the character, they're like, oh, yeah, that's them. Okay. Get along with the story, do what you gotta do, yeah, we'll get to that point. And it's like, it's just so obvious, and at the same time, though, the villain, like, the original design is cool, but then there's like a twist, and there is no design for the villain. And it's just, and I guess the reasoning for the villain isn't very strong. It's just like, I feel like their whole goal could have been achieved just by doing nothing. and instead of killing all these people, which the person seems to have no remorse about. And it's even weirder too because the villain, when you talk about like what the villain says, it's kind of like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, the whole idea is that the villain doesn't think the having heroes to help save the day kind of weakens you as everyone else just because they're waiting for a hero to save the day instead of trying to save it themselves. And there's also the whole idea of that. I thought it'd be more with the screen slavers, like with how like people are trapped in their screens and they never really like do anything with that, which is kind of surprising. Like, it just kind of seems like a cop out a little bit. But like, it's just, and a part of it too, that the idea that you can hypnotize people. And from that, you were introduced to a couple of different superheroes, and of course they have like a Civil War sort of thing where the superheroes are now controlled and they have to fight the Incredibles. And the best one of the new ones that they introduced is probably the Void, but all of them, they're just not. I mean, they have some fun moments, but I didn't really get anything from it. Like, I mean, again, it's just a fun movie. Like, I feel like if for a Pixar movie, I go into it, I expect something more, and this didn't have that something more. But still, it's a good movie. It is a fun movie. The animation, you can see how much Pixar has grown, because the animation is amazing, and that it's the characters are interesting. Like, that everything happens is fun. Like, it's a good time. It's just that it feels like another superhero movie, instead of something like throwing in the face of superhero movies and doing something different. It's just, I'm really kind of conflicted with this movie. Like, I would almost give it like an 8 out of 10, but if I didn't have problems with it, but I'd give it like a 7.5, 7.75 out of 10. I mean, if you like the first movie, if you like superhero movies or like animation, you're probably going to like it. I just wish they would have done something more with it. But thanks for watching, and check out that video playlist around my head or subscribe to me over here. Thanks.